As recruiters, you may be called upon to take photos for social media, the Recruiter Journal, local publications, or other printed materials. And since the push to be more active in social media has begun, taking better, more interesting photos will benefit your post. Mastering the basics of photography will improve your photo skills and help benefit USREC and your recruiting efforts. The photos you will take will be about people and what they are doing. Therefore, during this course, the person and the action, whether active or passive, is considered the subject of the photo. Though most digital cameras are fully automated, the recruiter must still understand the basic elements of photography and take care to ensure the photo is properly framed, in focus, and properly lit. To properly frame the subject of a photo, you need to do 4 things. First, decide if the photo should be a horizontal or vertical. Second, eliminate any distractions that may be in the foreground or background. Third, decide if the photo should be a long, medium, or close-up shot. And fourth, apply the proper headroom and or nose room. Now let's see how to determine if a photo should be horizontal or vertical. This photo was taken as a horizontal, but should have been shot as a vertical. To determine how to frame a photo, ask yourself, what is the subject of the photo? Is it horizontal or vertical? In this case, the subject of the photo are the players going after the ball, not the people sitting along the sidelines. So this photo should have been shot as a vertical. As a side note, this is also a poor photo for several other reasons as well. Look at the subject, i.e. the players. All you see are the back of their heads. Some of their feet are cut off, and the players do not fill the frame, so there is a lot of wasted space. Now look at this photo. The subjects and action fill the frame while showing their faces and feet. So here's our Take Better Photos Tip 1. Fill the frame with the subject. Remember, this includes people and the action. Shoot faces, not the back of heads, and don't cut off the feet. So think fill, faces, and feet before you take the photo. Look at these photos. Which ones do you think have been properly framed? You've already seen the photo on the left, so you should know that the subject is the 3 players, not the people sitting on the side against the wall. So it should have been shot as a vertical. In the middle photo, the subject is the 3 players near the basket, not the other players standing further away. So this also should have been a vertical. In the last photo, the subject is the 2 players and is properly framed as a horizontal. However, this could also have been shot as a vertical. Here are the 3 photos again, only framed as verticals. You can see that when framed as verticals, your eye focuses on the action in the photo, not the background. Let's look at another example. At first glance, this photo looks like it must be a horizontal, and it's a decent photo. But let's look at it again. As a vertical, it looks just as good or maybe better because it's less cluttered without the other recruiters. So in this case, it could have been a vertical or horizontal. Here's our Take Better Photos Tip 2. To eliminate wasted space, use verticals when appropriate. Many photos don't look good because something in the background or foreground distracts from the subject of the shot. Let's look at some examples. Here's a young lady that looks like she has a stop sign growing out of the top of her head. To correct this, have the subject move, but make sure the tree doesn't end up on her head instead. When shooting inside an office, watch out for plants in the background. Here's our Take Better Photos Tip 3. Don't let things appear to grow out of the back of a person's head. In this example, the person in the foreground on the right distracts from the subjects and action in the shot. In this case, the photographer should move to the left or zoom in on the action. This photo of the same event is better because it eliminates the foreground distraction and fills the frame with the subjects. The second element in proper framing is selecting the type of shot that will make the best photo. The choices are long, medium, or close-up. As a guide, long shots are used when you're trying to capture a large group of people, medium shots are when there are approximately 1 to 5 people in the photo, and close-ups are effective when wanting to show the emotions of the subject. Let's look at some examples. Long shots can be vertical or horizontal. Long shots are useful when taking shots of large groups of people. Notice the different angles. In the first photo, the photographer was on the ground. In the second one, he was slightly to the side. And in the third one, he was almost totally to the side. Shoot different angles of the same event to provide the editor creative choices. As a side note, in the photo on the right, the tip of the boot of the recruiter closest to the camera is clipped off. Remember, in long shots, never cut off part of the foot. Medium shots can either be vertical or horizontal. They include photos shot from just above the knees, from around the waist to just above the chest. The photo on the right is considered a medium shot even though there are individuals in the background. This is because the actual subject of the photo is the soldier at the podium. Close-ups include shots that are usually framed from the first button or higher and can be horizontal or vertical. They are effective when they catch the emotion of the moment, subtle or not. Here's our Take Better photo tips for: get candid shots of faces. Recruiting is about people, not things. Whenever shots eliminate part of the chin and head, they are called extreme close-ups. The process of cutting off part of the head or chin is called psychological enclosure. However, never crop right below the chin, as in the third photo, as it makes the subject look awkward. It is okay to crop only the head and not the chin, but never the other way around. Though extreme close-ups can be very expressive, editors would prefer to have a close-up instead, which offers them the option to crop it as an extreme close-up or to use it as a close-up. Therefore, it's best not to shoot extreme close-ups. Proper headroom and nose room is really about having an appropriate amount of space from the subject to the edge of the photo. In long shots where the subject is moving, leading the subject, a term more commonly used when shooting video, refers to the proper amount of space from the front of the subject to the edge of the photo. Let's look at some examples. Headroom is the distance from the top of the subject's head to the top of the frame. The subject may not always be a person, it could also be an object. The photo on the left is a good example of proper headroom. The eye goes directly to the subject. The middle photo shows improper headroom and how it draws the eye down toward the bottom of the frame and makes the photo feel lopsided. The photo on the right shows how even objects must have proper headroom. Nose room is the distance from the subject's nose to the edge of the frame. The more the subject looks to the side, the greater the nose room needs to be. The photo on the left shows that when the subject's face is turned directly towards the camera, he should be centered in the frame. In this photo, even though the subject is looking slightly off to the side, his face is almost completely toward the camera. In the middle photo, as the subject looks and turns his head to the side, there should be more room in the direction his face is turned. In the photo on the right, notice how the nose room increases as the subject looks more to the side. There's very little space from the back of his head to the edge of the photo. Use the same principles when leading the subject as you do when applying nose room. The photo on the left is a good example of leading the subject. The eye can see where the platoon or action is going. In the second photo, you can see that without leading the subject, the soldier is marching off the photo and the frame is unbalanced. The second basic element in photography is focus. Sharp focus is critical in photography, especially when the photo may need to be enlarged. Using a camera's autofocus does not guarantee a sharp focus. A slightly out of focus photo may be okay for social media, but not for the recruiter journal and/or printed materials such as newspapers, flyers, banners, and signs. To take photos with sharp focus, do the following. Initiate the camera's autofocus functionality. Ensure the camera focuses on the subject, not the foreground or background. And stabilize the camera while pressing the shutter button. That simply means hold it still. Many photos may appear to be in focus when viewed at less than 100%. The small photo on the right appears to be in focus, but once enlarged to 100%, you can clearly see it is not. Here's our Take Better Photos Tip 5. Only use cell phone photos for social media. They may not be adequate for printed publications. All recruiting centers have a digital camera assigned to them. It is either a Kodak Z712 or a Canon ELPH100. Though these cameras are fairly inexpensive, they are capable of taking quality photos and allow recruiters to use autofocus. To take better photos, get familiar with the camera before using it. If the owner's manual is not available, you can find it on the internet. Make sure the batteries are charged prior to your event. To use autofocus on the Kodak Z12 or ELPH100, do the following. Fill the frame with the subject by zooming in or out. Press the shutter button halfway down. The camera's viewfinder will display one or more focus areas using green boxes on the ELPH or partial rectangles on the Kodak. This shows you exactly what the camera is focused on. If the subject of the photo is not in focus, release the shutter button and try again. As you hold the shutter button halfway down, you will hear a beep with the Kodak and 2 beeps with the ELPH. That means the camera is focused and ready to take the picture. Press the shutter button all the way down to take the photo. In this photo, the camera focused on the soldier's hat and gloves in the background. This made the female in the foreground totally out of focus and the male was soft focus. To correct this problem, first point the camera at the subject in the foreground and let it autofocus on it, in this case the female. The framing may be off, but that's okay. Next, continue to hold the shutter button halfway down. This locks in the focus. Then, while still holding the shutter button halfway down, move the camera to the desired framing and then take the picture. Photos can often be blurred if the camera is moved when the shutter button is pressed, if there is not enough light and the camera's lens stays open too long when capturing the photo, or if the action in the photo moves too fast for the camera. In this example, the photo is blurry. It's blurry because the photographer moved the camera ever so slightly when he pressed the shutter button. Remember, when taking photos, use a light trigger finger. Here's our Take Better Photos Tip 6. When shooting from a far distance without a tripod, if possible, lean on a wall, a pillar, or hold the camera close to your body to stabilize it and eliminate blur. The final basic element is lighting. No matter how well you focus and frame a shot, poor lighting will ruin any photo. Though you usually can't control the lighting, there are several things you can do to make it better. Here are the 3 keys to good lighting. Avoid backlight, use the flash, and avoid reflections. Always avoid backlighting. You can see from the photo on the left when the subject is in front of a bright light source such as a window or glass door, even a camera set on auto will not get the proper exposure. To ensure a backlight doesn't ruin the photo, move the subject or change where you are standing. In the photo on the right, the subject was in the exact spot as in the first photo, only now the photographer moved to eliminate the backlight. Though using the on-camera flash should solve most low-light problems, it can also create red eye. Red eye comes from light reflecting off the retina in the eye when a photo is taken in a dark environment. This is usually caused by the flash. To avoid this, set the camera to the Remove Red Eye setting if it has one. If you don't have a Remove Red Eye setting, turn on more lights in the room, open blinds, or do whatever you can to shed more light on the subject. After taking a photo, your camera will show you a preview. Use it to ensure you have a usable photo and that there is no red eye. If you are using a smartphone and you get red eye, there are apps for smartphones that will allow you to remove the red eye after the photo is taken. Ambient light is whatever type of light is existing or present, usually on all sides. Avoid taking photos when the ambient light or flash reflects off of walls, posters, mirrors, glasses, or windows. In the photo on the left, the outside sunlight came through the glass doors that were behind the photographer and provided good lighting for the subject, but caused an unwanted reflection from the poster on the wall. The photo on the right shows how flash can reflect off the subject's eyeglasses. If this happens, turn off the flash, but be sure there's enough ambient light to take a good photo. Another option is to have the subject remove his or her glasses. When you pose a shot, you control the action in it by instructing the subjects what they need to do, such as point at a chart, look at the camera, or talk to each other. Since many people are not comfortable posing, take several shots of the same pose until you get one where the subject looks natural. 3 reasons to pose a shot are: the photo is a grip and grin, i.e. someone receives an award; the photo is in a classroom or teaching situation; or there's no real action at the time. Let's look at some examples. The photo on the left is an example of getting a shot of a future soldier or applicant. It can be accomplished by having the recruiter appear to be explaining something to him or her. They should never be looking at the camera. The middle photo is an example of getting a training or classroom photo. Ask the subject to pose for the shot during a break or at the end of the class. Make sure no one in the photo is looking directly at the camera. The only time you want the subject looking at the camera is when shooting a grip and grin. The photo on the right shows the subject in action. In this shot, the pay soldier was posing as if he was carrying a mat out of his service van. Here's our Take Better Photos Tip 7. Know how to operate your camera. Read the owner's manual. So how many photos of an event should you take? Back in the day when taking photos meant purchasing film and paying for processing, the cost to get a great photo was high. But now with the advent of digital cameras, photographers have the luxury to shoot hundreds of photos of any event with no additional cost, and when they're finished, they simply throw the bad ones away. As a guideline, getting a usable shot may require at least 3 to 5 photos of the same action. Getting a better shot may require 5 to 10 or more shots of the same action. Basically, take as many photos as needed to document an event. As an example, documenting an event goes like this. A few years ago, I was covering a West Virginia Future Soldier event where I shot more than 250 photos. Here's why I shot so many. First, the governor's representative came and was talking to the commander and recruiters casually before the event, so I got some photos of that. Then I got pictures of the opening ceremonies, and there were 5 different team-building events which I shot several times with different groups. Then there were drill sergeant activities, and I shot those several times, and an obstacle course. It was also the Army birthday, so there was a cake-cutting ceremony. Then I shot pictures of the commander's speech and the guest speaker's comments, the award ceremonies, and then the closing comments. And of course, throughout the day, I shot photos of parents and the public interacting with recruiters. You can see why I took more than 250 photos. I documented the day's events. It's better to take a lot of photos we don't need than to take just a few and not get a usable one. By the way, when a VIP attends your event, even if they aren't the guest speaker and we really don't need photos of them, always take a few photos of them anyway and make sure they see you're taking their photo. It makes them feel important, and you never know when we might need their support. Now let's talk about how to get the best shot possible. Shooting several photos of the same action can help you get a usable photo or several better ones. This series of photos shows how shooting uncontrolled action usually requires more than one attempt to get a good shot. To get these 3 shots, the photographer climbed onto the vehicle and sat at the back of it looking to the front. After taking many photos of the action, these were the best 3. With the photo on the left, the female future soldier suddenly looked down and blocked the face of the male future soldier. The middle one shows all the faces, so this is a better shot than the first one, but the female on the right hasn't put on her headphones and the other female's expression isn't that good. The photo on the right is the best one because all 3 future soldiers have on headphones and have more interesting expressions than in the other 2 photos. Sometimes standing or even kneeling won't get a good photo. To get these shots, the photographer was lying flat on his stomach on a steep slope that was just in front of the future soldier. Which one of these shots do you think the editor chose to print? The photo on the left had legs of people in the photo, both on the left and top right, and the eyes of the future soldier were closed, so this wasn't too good of a shot. In the middle photo, the future soldier's face was partially covered by the weapon, and a person is in the background on the right. The photo on the right was the best shot in the series because you can see most of the future soldier's face, and there are no other distractive elements. This is the photo the editor chose to print. Please note, because there can always be distractive elements in the background, such as people walking by just as you take the picture, you should always take several photos of the same pose. When there's not much action to shoot, sometimes a photo that would be boring can be improved by using a different or unusual angle. The photo on the left used an oblique angle that's slanted to the right. The equipment in the foreground implies what the instructor was talking about. The middle photo shows how extreme low angles can be somewhat dramatic and often enhance the effect of a photo. The photo on the right shows how a photo can be more interesting even when the angle doesn't really let you know exactly what you're looking at. But that's no problem. The photo caption will give the details. Anticipating the action and waiting for it to happen requires patience, but will always give you more interesting photos. With the photo on the left, the photographer framed and focused the shot, then waited for the moment when the rope broke, sending everyone to the ground. In the middle photo, to catch the sprint to the finish line, the photographer positioned himself 25 feet away, knelt to the ground and zoomed in to the runners as they rounded the corner. The photo on the right shows that sometimes you just have to be lucky to catch the action, in this case the ball in midair. The photographer took 10 photos of this action before he got this shot. Good photography doesn't just happen. To take better photos, follow these guidelines. To make your photos interesting, whenever possible, use action shots. Have a recruiter or a future soldier in the photo, or both. When shooting an event, let your photos collectively tell a story. Use different or unusual angles to create more interest. And if needed, pose the subjects in the shot. Following are examples of shots and a critique of them, including the good, the bad, and the ugly. In this shot, the good shows great action on the part of the future soldier and the recruiter. The signage in the background on the fence reflects the Army brand. The bad is the partial body of a soldier walking in the upper left part of the frame, and part of the recruiter's head is cut off. Overall, this is an excellent photo. To get the photo, the photographer was close to the ground and asked the recruiter to be animated when encouraging the future soldier. So in other words, it was partially posed. In this photo, the good shows action, i.e. the future soldier aiming the weapon, and it shows the faces of the future soldiers. The bad, there's way too much headroom, and the future soldier's expression, the one not aiming the weapon, makes him look almost bored. Overall, this is an okay photo. The excessive headroom can be cropped before final printing. In this photo, the good shows action although passive, i.e. the recruiter is instructing the future soldier. It shows the faces of the recruiter and future soldier, and the background does not distract from the photo. The bad, it could have used a little more headroom, and it could have more of the future soldier hands included. Overall, this is a good photo. Even though the action isn't very exciting, it does show action. Remember, action shots are always preferred over grip and grin shots where subjects stand and face the camera. There is no good in this shot, only the bad. Though there is a recruiter and future soldiers in the shot, you can't see their faces. The one face you can see is the future soldier in the background, but he looks bored, and the wheelbarrow on the foreground is very distracting. This is an unusable photo. Remember, when trying to capture the action of an event, keep on shooting until you get some good usable shots. If the event lasts several hours, you might take 100 photos or more. We only need 1 or 2 good photos for the story, and since the cameras are digital, you can always delete the bad ones. In this shot, there is no good or bad, only the ugly, and I'm not talking about the attractiveness of the soldier. I'm sure you recognize this type of photo. This future soldier just enlisted. Does he look happy or excited about his decision, or does he look more like he just learned he failed all of his final exams? This is not an acceptable photo. We would never want this printed in the papers or put on social media. When taking this type of photo, ask the future soldier to smile or say something funny that might create a pleasant look. Your camera is digital, so take as many shots as necessary to get a photo with a pleasant expression. This training covered how to take better photos no matter what camera you use. However, since there may be differences between cameras and how to do things such as removing red eye and autofocus lock, it's recommended you understand your camera by reading and familiarizing yourself with the manual. If you don't have the manual, it can be viewed online. At a minimum, you need to know how to turn on the camera, zoom in and out, use the autofocus, load and charge the battery, set the camera to fully automatic mode, and turn on, off, and change the flash mode. To take better photos, review this training if needed. Also, after you take photos, critique them. See what you did right or wrong. It doesn't take long to learn how to take better photos. It only takes the desire to become a better photographer.